Hi, everyone. Welcome to Rent Prep for Landlords. Welcome to our February AMA session. I'm Andrew Schultz, Community Manager here at Rent Prep. I'm also a real estate broker with over 14 years of experience in the property management and rental property industries. I'm joined today by Josh Ungaro. He is the Marketing Manager over at Rent Prep. Josh, how are you today?
I'm doing well, Andrew. I'm happy to finally be on one of these things.
I thought you were on one of these before, like a few months
No,
ago. Maybe I'm thinking of Carlos.
no, it was Carlos. I am always the guy behind the scenes, helping out, doing all the moderation. So it's good to be on one.
Gotcha. Well, we're testing out some new software today as well. So if you guys have comments, drop them in the live stream. I think that we're able to actually pull them up on screen today, maybe if we're super lucky. We do obviously have a whole bunch of questions that we pulled from the Rent Prep for Landlord Facebook group, as well as from questions that people had sent us for the AMA today. We're going to get into all that stuff here in just a minute. But yeah, we are checking out some new software today called StreamYard. It's going to help us to broadcast our AMAs in a little bit easier format so you guys can see us. And so that Josh and I, or Carlos and I, or Steve and I, or whoever and I don't necessarily have to be in the same physical location, which is going to make for some more interesting AMAs kind of as time goes on, I think. So I'm pretty excited about this. It's a new piece of software. We've actually filmed one piece of content with this already. We did an interview that's going to be coming out later this week, maybe.
Yes. Is it Tuesday or Wednesday of this week, or is it?
I think it's
Is it early next week?
Tuesday.
It might be Tuesday. Yeah.
I think it's Tuesday. I think, and so we're doing the interview. There'll be a video that gets posted on the YouTube page, and then that same interview, we pulled the audio off of that, and that's going to be our next podcast episode as well. So if you prefer to listen to us while you're driving, you can still get a good listen to that interview. It's going to be with Vitaly. I'm going to mispronounce his last name. Volnov?
I think it's.
I'm way
is
off.
it Volpov or Volnov?
I would actually have to go back and check my email to make sure I had the pronunciation of it wrong. And I apologize to him in advance for butchering that. But he is actually a real estate investor. And he's worn every hat out there. He's a real estate investor. He's a real estate attorney. He owns a property management company. He owns a real estate brokerage. There's something for everybody in that episode. I would definitely recommend. And he's also a first generation immigrant to the United States. So he's got a really interesting story. I think that people really enjoy that episode. But yeah.
I'm fired up. Vitaly is one of our partners that we've had for a while, and we've been looking for the opportunity to kind of trade off and do some interviews. So definitely excited for some content that's going to provide a lot of value for the Rent Prep users. So that'll be cool.
I'm interested to see, because I also did an episode of his show, and I'm interested to see, ours is going to come in at just shy of an hour, I think, if I remember correctly, and we recorded just shy of 2 hours of content for his show. So I don't know what the edit on that's going to look like yet, but if you can't get enough of the sound of my voice, there's plenty of it.
He's such an easy guy to talk to.
He really is.
I mean, he's so knowledgeable, such an easy guy to talk to. Just a good guy overall. So that, I'm really going to enjoy that.
Yeah, that's going to be a good episode. And we're looking to do more of that style of content as well. I guess we should mention that. So like if there's somebody that you think would be a good interview for us, or if there's a topic that you would like us to interview someone about, that's a good opportunity. You can certainly let us know about that. Either drop it in the comments here, or you can send an email to, what's my email? Andrew@rentprep.com.
Yeah, it's just Andrew@rentprep.com.
Yeah. So you can shoot me an email and we'll see what we can do to maybe see if we can get some more future interviews lined up here. But yeah, we're really excited about that. That's something that we're going to try to do more of here in 2023, just to give you some different perspectives so that you're not listening to the same voice over and over and over and over again. Cause I know that can get a little gyrating, a little boring after a while. So
no, not you, Andrew.
Hey man, I just do my thing. I just push the content. So
no. All right. Well, should we jump in here?
Yeah, let's go ahead and jump in here.
All right. Why don't we start with this one? We've got a question from Mark submitted to us. All right. What do you got, Mark? Mark Scott, how do you calculate and handle a damage that seems to be done on purpose in the laminated floor at a very visible point within the apartment, when you have no extra floor elements and no replacement are available in store either, as it's no more on the market? I don't know of any tricks or workaround that could help to heal this kind of damage without the need to completely replace the 25 M2 of the laminated area
Like
because of the
25
two
square
cent,
meters.
yeah, square meters. I don't know why I read it like that. Um, any best practice on that? He seemed to damage it with a pocket knife. Yikes. When I asked what happened, he said he dropped a cup and completely neglected my concerns.
Hmm. There's a couple of products out there. Let me see if I can present on screen real quick. I'm going to try to do this. We'll see if I'm able to make it work. Let's see. I think I have to change because I already had that one
Yeah.
set up for a little while ago. Give me 1 second. I'm going to see if I can share this Chrome tab here. They make some products out here, and this is not a recommendation because I haven't used this product or really any of these laminate repair products. But there's a
Yeah.
variety of these products out there that you can use to try to repair laminate flooring and things of that nature, kind of depending on the color that you're going for. Essentially, it's like a wax or it's basically what
Yeah.
it is like a wax that you kind of almost like the old trick of rubbing a walnut on a piece of wood furniture. Same general concept. You're basically backfilling the gouges or the scratches with whatever product or whatever color would match your flooring most closely. It's never going to be exact, but it should get you at least a little bit closer to where you were. And that's one of those things with laminate floors. Essentially, laminate floors, once they get scratched, there's not a good way of repairing them.
Yeah.
I understand exactly where this guy's coming from, talking about where Mark's coming from, talking about it's right in the middle of the floor or it's in a super obvious area or something like that. And that's honestly the reason that we don't use a lot of laminate flooring is simply because it has a tendency to scratch. And once you scratch through that layer that actually shows the flooring, which is very thin, it's just a veneer. Once you scratch that, it's all over. You're never going to make it look 100% again. That's typically why we recommend the vinyl plank versus the laminate, because vinyl has an actual wear layer. It's actually several
Yeah.
mil thick. And then that way, if you get a surface scratch, it's not necessarily going to show up quite as much.
Yeah. I just put some of that vinyl planking into my basement. So I'm glad I
Hmm.
did that. Yeah, just another response just to Mark's issue here. Just from looking around, like kind of Andrew said, and kind of the products that he showed, um, what I really found was using a high quality, almost like car wax is really what people say. And most of the forums that I kind of was able to find any information on this, that's what
Hmm.
they're all kind of saying. So yeah, definitely a product similar to kind of what Andrew had pulled up there. Uh, that would be my recommendation as well.
They also make rolls of wood veneer.
Hmm.
See if I can pull this up real quick because we actually ended up doing this recently. Oh, let me see. Present. Everybody gets to watch as we learn together on this one. There we go.
That's all
We'll
right.
pull this up real quick. So this is like a
Yeah.
veneer, like almost like a piece of veneer with adhesive on the back of it that you basically try to match up to whatever the situation is and apply the veneer patch. You can cut a piece of it out if you try to want to match the grout lines,
Right.
or not the grout lines, the grain lines, whatever the case
Yeah.
may be. We've used this stuff with really good success on vanities, on cabinets, things of that nature, where somebody comes in and makes a scratch just enough to make it ugly, but not enough where you want to sit and replace the entire thing. They're not perfect, obviously. You're never going to find something that exactly matches the grain that you're going for. You might not find something that matches the exact shade you're looking for, but they sell this in both like the little patches like this, and then they also sell it in rolls, which is
Mm.
kind of useful. So there's a couple different options there for maybe not, maybe like on a vanity or something. I don't think I would use this on a floor, but at least at that point you have the option of something to try to make a repair, make it kind of blend in a little
How
bit.
would that be installed? Would that just be laid? Would that just be overlaid and then sanded down to kind of get it to the right
It's
level, or how
it's
does that
basically
kind
a
of work?
sticker. It's
Just a
basically a
sticker.
sticker. You're just going to throw a sticker on it and call it a day. It's
Okay,
not great for, you're not going to use this in a high end rental. More than likely, you're going to use this in probably something a little bit more low end or something where it's not going to have an impact on your rent, sort of a situation.
gotcha.
It's an option. It's a not
Yeah,
necessarily the best option out there, but when you're trying to find a quick and easy solution to like we just used this on a vanity in a bathroom. There was a scratch on the side of it from I have no idea from what, but it was, it was probably a 4-inch scratch, and we were able to find a piece of this that matched close enough to make it look okay. And basically what we did was just took a strip and went from the top of the, like where the vanity countertop would be, all the way down to the floor level, and just laid one strip all the way down. Because we found that that's what looked the cleanest, if you will. Again, it's never going to be 100%, but it is an option out there versus replacing an entire vanity or ripping all of the veneer off of the side of the vanity and trying to do some sort of a refinish or something like that. You've got some
Yeah.
options out there, basically.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's good in a pinch, and like you said, if it's something that, if it's not your highest quality rental property or something that you don't want to put a ton of money into, it's always good to have as an option.
Absolutely.
All right. Let's go to the next one. Question from MC. Can I use RentPrep if I am in Asia?
That's
So
a good question for you, I would say.
yeah, so if the properties and if you're located and the properties are located in Asia, you would not be able to use RentPrep, as RentPrep currently is not doing any international screening. Um, However, if you did live in Asia and you had properties that were over in the US, you would be able to run reports and use RentPrep as your provider.
Can I put you on the spot a little bit there and ask, what if you have someone that just moved to the States and you need to run a screening on them?
Ooh, somebody who just moved to the States and you need to run screening. That might be a question that we need to tag in one of the screening experts on.
Hmm.
Um, but so if Katie or if anybody, Katie or any of the screening team are on here, if you could just kind of answer Andrew's question about that, that'd be great. I don't want to make sure we're giving the right info there.
Hmm. So while we're looking to see if one of those screeners can pop in, I just pulled up our tenant underwriting guidelines, which is the document that we use when we're screening tenants. And this was written specifically for international students, but you can kind of see what we're doing when we're trying to approve an international student, because screening can be a bit of a challenge. International students engaged in a program in the United States must provide the affidavit of support, either the sponsor or student's bank account statement, a photocopy of the passport, a photocopy of their most recent US visa, a photocopy of their I-94, a photocopy of their most recent US port of entry stamp, a photocopy of current and all previous I-20 forms and or change of status approvals, and we will need a cosigner who can meet all the cosigner requirements. So essentially what we're looking to find out is this person that's coming in, do they have money for the duration of their lease term? Or, generally speaking, most international students seem to come over here and have some sort of employment lined up by the university prior to arrival. And that's usually the only employment that they can get is through a university program, simply due to their visa status in a lot of instances. So we go through and kind of verify that they have a valid visa, that they are coming here to be enrolled in program, this, that, and the other thing. But at the end of the day, because that person doesn't have an established history here in terms of being able to pay bills and support rent and stuff like that, that's where we would actually say they still need to have a cosigner above and beyond all of that other stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And it looks like Katie had asked for you to repeat the question, Andrew. I don't
Oh,
know.
sorry. Katie, the
Yeah,
question was, what was the question? If you have a tenant that is just moved to the
just
United
recently.
States,
Yeah.
just moved recently to the United States, can you use them? Can you use RentPrep to screen that tenant? And if so, like, what does the process look like for that? So we'll come back to that in a minute. We'll give Katie a minute to answer there.
For sure.
You want to
All
jump to
right.
the next one?
Yeah. Why don't we how about we roll to this one? I'm gonna pull one from the Facebook group.
Okay.
Um, Facebook submitted here. We've got a question from Elisa. So looking for some advice. Tenants said packages and mail is being stolen, and they want us to buy them a locking mailbox. Don't know how that will prevent packages from being taken, but it will help with the mail. What do you think? Should we buy them a new locking mailbox? It's about $125. Thanks.
I mean, if you want to
Hmm.
buy them a locking mailbox, I think it's a nice courtesy as a landlord, but mail theft is a federal crime. Like
Yeah.
realistically, they should probably be talking to the post office to see if there's something that can go on, or maybe there's more than one house in the area that's having the same effect right now. There's more than one person going through this. There might be something that the post office can do, or if there is a bunch of people in the same neighborhood, maybe they can launch a little bit more in-depth investigation or something like that.
What are
I
your
think the
thoughts
only
on
places.
what are your thoughts on, getting an agreement together with the tenant and potentially doing an outdoor camera?
Outdoor camera, I think I would probably be more okay with than an indoor camera, because then you start talking about common spaces. And realistically speaking, this is one of those things that you have to look into the law first and see, okay, what is legal for me to record? Can I record video without audio, or can I record both, or whatever the case may be? Because that does vary state by state. You might have to put a sign up or something like that. So make sure you're
Yeah.
covering your ground there first. But an outdoor
So I
camera,
wrote,
even if you get a picture of the person, like even if you get a picture of the person, you're going to turn it over to the police department, who is probably
right.
not going to do a whole lot about one package being stolen, unless your package was, a piece of jewelry or something like that that was worth several $1,000s. The chances of the police actually doing much of an investigation, I think, would be pretty slim.
I think my thought on that is that, I a few months back I wrote a piece on, is it legal for a landlord to have cameras on their property? And it kind of went into some of the things you just described. Like, you get into gray areas if you have them anywhere inside common area, or private areas. You got to make sure there's all these things you got to make sure of. But I think my
Hmm.
question there is, if kind of this landlord is paying $125 already for a lockbox,
Right.
then, if they can get in an agreement with the tenant to put a camera in, that you probably could buy an outdoor camera. And what
Hmm.
I've seen from just like the lower to mid range, you could probably get one for about 60 $70, and then you pay the subscription for it to record and capture video. If you're already
Even a Ring
$125 in.
doorbell would do the
Yeah.
trick more than likely. And I think you're probably talking probably in the $100 range for a Ring doorbell.
I think I got my Ring for $99, and then you got 3 months free of audio, full video capturing and save,
Hmm.
recording. And then after that, it was like $40 for the rest of the year. So I
That
mean,
sounds right.
it's not that bad. So, my thought here is, if she's already $125 in,
Sure.
if you can work something out with your tenant where they'd be okay and they'd feel more comfortable with it, potentially, since it's in an outdoor space that's not
Hmm.
private,
I'm
something
curious
you
to
could do.
know. Yeah, I'm curious to know if it's a single family or a multifamily, because I think that would have some
Yeah,
impact here as well. If it's a single family, getting agreement from one tenant and being like, "Listen, I'll buy the Ring doorbell if you put it on your Wi-Fi." That's a pretty
right.
straightforward thing. I think that it's pretty easy to come to an agreement like that. But if you have a 10 unit building and now you need to either notify all 10 tenants or get permission at the worst for all 10 tenants of a new camera
Yeah,
in the building or on the front door or whatever, it just boils down to making sure that you understand what the laws are in your area, what you can and can't do, and make sure that you do what you need to do to make sure that the tenants are aware of the fact that it's there.
right. Okay, cool. It looks
Something
like,
that something that we've done in our office is, so we have a Ring doorbell on the front, like the outside front door of our office. We are actually buying because we're not here all the time. We're also in and out of the office quite a bit. We're actually getting a large bin and putting a lock inside of it. So if, for instance, Amazon comes and drops a package and we're not here, they can drop it into the large bin that'll be secured to the ground in some fashion, and then they can lock it off. Whoops, they can lock it off, and then there's nobody can get in there and steal my packages or whatever the case may be. So there's
yeah.
options out there. It sucks that people feel the need to steal packages, but this has become such a rampant thing in 2023 that I think we're going to hear a lot more about this.
Yeah. No, for sure. I actually, I bought a property back in May, and I actually have a tenant living in the property with me right now. But they expressed that they wanted the camera, they wanted all that stuff, and they
Hmm.
were more than happy to sign off on just a disclosure with me to be okay with it. So, it's definitely a case by case basis and something you want to make sure you understand, the laws and regulations in your area. But
Yeah, definitely.
we'll see.
Yeah, I mean,
All
and
right.
like I have a couple at my place too. Like, I mean, obviously I'm the only one there, but
Yeah.
we have like a doorbell camera and I have one on the garage and stuff like that just for safety. Honestly, I
Yeah.
think most people are getting accustomed to the fact that they should just assume that they're on camera
Yeah.
24/7 because we've basically reached that point. Like if you're out in public, like you can pretty much anticipate that something near you has a camera lens on it, whether it's aimed at you or not.
Yeah.
It's just better to act as if. So
Yeah, so it looks like Katie got back to us on that question from before. She said, if the applicant has just recently moved to the States, typically within the last 6 months, it is not likely that we would be able to obtain records on the applicant. However, if they do have an SSN that was issued, even if recent, we are still able to run the RentPrep background check. If the I'm losing my spot. RentPrep background check. If the applicant only has an ITIN, then they would be able to utilize our TransUnion full credit report to receive the credit and background check if they have any established TO. To be transparent, in these situations, you are typically better off running an international search from the country they are coming from, as they would have way more established in that country. Sadly, at this time, we do not have a way to conduct an international screening on an individual. So,
okay.
long, good, very good descriptive answer from Katie that I had some trouble reading. But yeah, I think that kind of sums that up.
Well, and we see that happen. I mean, I've screened some international, recently arrived international people in using rent prep services, and it's pretty typical that you just get a blank credit report back because they just simply don't have anything to report
Right.
here. So I think Katie's right on the button there, saying if you're able to get something from their home country, that might be the route to go. But
Yeah.
realistically speaking, they're no longer in their home country. So I mean, even that data is, you kind of have to take it with a grain of salt. Some states will allow you to kind of offset the risk of somebody that you can't screen by allowing for like security first and last month's rent, or security and a double security deposit in first month or something like that. New York is no longer one of those states, unfortunately, since HSTPA passed in 2019. But that is another way, if you are in a state that allows you to offset your risk by increasing your rent or your security deposit, that would probably be a good option in these instances as well.
Yeah.
And actually, I
Okay,
just saw
perfect.
another question here from Mike Sherwood. Can we pick this one up real quick? Um,
Sure.
Mike owns a property management company here in Western New York as well, which is why I picked up his question. How are you handling the new New York State law now requires charging only a certain amount to run credit reports and background checks, and potentially the cost ends up being more than what we can charge the tenant? So I know on my end, I'm using the enterprise solution that RentPrep offers, which basically allows me to set the amount that the tenant is paying, and then on the back end, I'm picking up the remainder of the fee essentially. How are you guys handling that when you're not on the enterprise side, when you're doing the TransUnion reports and things of that nature?
Yeah, so just for transparency again, like that's going to be a question that I'd have to tag Carlos or Katie
Oh, okay.
into. But um if Katie's on here, she can grab that, or any other screener that's sitting
I
here. But I
actually,
think we're gonna have to
this was a loaded question because I knew the answer to it already. I
oh
figured
well,
that you did too. I was throwing
yeah.
it to you because I figured it'd be a softball for you. No, I actually just learned this before the Vitali interview, because we
Oh,
were going over the new products and product offerings and stuff like that. And I believe the current setup for RentPrep, if you're using the RentPrep services not on the enterprise side and you're screening a tenant in New York, I think the landlord has to pay the full sum up front. Um, and then if you want to try to collect $20 from the tenant, I believe that's an option that you have on the back end in person or whatever the case may be. But I think on the RentPrep TransUnion reports, I'm pretty sure, and I mean Katie can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I'm pretty sure that's the process. Is you basically, the landlord pays for the report because more than likely it will wind up being more than the $20 that's allowed under state law. And then if you want to collect $20 from the tenant on the back end, I think that's the way that go about using it. I do see that Mike also commented here that they're currently using the screening software that's built into their property management software. I won't say what property management software they're using, but it's the same one that I use. And I would say that if you were to go and Google that company's name, you can find that they were just involved in a pretty substantial lawsuit that they had to settle out as a result of their poor screening practices. So if you're currently using that company, I would recommend looking at some other options. RentPrep is a great one. But yeah, the company in question, and a lot of these companies that are just churning out, it's a constant issue. It's not just this property management software. Anybody who's just churning out reports without actually looking at the data that's in the reports is kind of running that same risk. And essentially what was happening is that there were false negatives and false positives being reported, which were having an impact on people's decisions when it came to selecting tenants. And that's what they ultimately wound up getting sued for, was incorrect data. And then Katie did respond, $32 for the TransUnion report because it will exclude the eviction search for New York State. But yes, it only has a landlord pay option at this time. So yeah, if you go on and you're a New York landlord and you are looking to screen someone in New York, you're going to pay that full $32 for the fee up front, collect the $20 from the tenant on the back end. And then New York State does not allow us to look at eviction data, which is why the New York report is a little less expensive at $32 versus the national report, which I believe is $40, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And if you're not a New York landlord, I'll kind of briefly explain. Back in 2019, New York State changed the laws here with regards to tenant and background checks, and basically stated that you have a maximum fee of $20 for the credit and background check. And that's kind of where we're at. It's not well thought out legislation, but it is the legislation that's in place where we're at currently. And I think that's probably about all I should say about that topic.
Okay, let's let's roll on to the next one then.
Yeah.
All right, I think let's hop back to the Facebook questions. I've got a question from Ron.
Okay.
So Ron goes, I have a partially finished basement in one of my rental properties that is pretty outdated and could use some work to truly make it a livable, enjoyable space. Wow, livable, enjoyable space. Does anyone think it's worth it to put the time into having this redone or fixing it up myself? Does it add value to what I could charge on the lease, or is this just an unnecessary project that I shouldn't even bother with? Thanks.
Realistically speaking, go ahead.
Yeah. No, go. I mean, you can start us off.
No, I was going to say, realistically speaking, there's not enough data to answer the question, because sometimes it's not worth finishing out a basement if you're only going to get $500, $750 a month on the rent for that unit. You're spending money for no reason. It just doesn't work at that point.
Yeah. So from what I've seen, like if you can do it and figure it out at a reasonable cost, and it's not like a complete overhaul, and there's just some slight adjustments you can make, then I do believe that it could be worth it. Funny enough that when Ronnie submitted this question, I literally I just completed a basement remodel of a property that I bought back in May. So I was able to get together some of the photos from that, and if Andrew's able to share these, and if I can see them on my screen.
I've got them up. If you can see the studio screen, you should be able to see them.
Yeah, I should be good. So, I mean, obviously right here, and like I said, I do have one tenant in this property, and when I had talked to the tenant and told him that I was going to kind of redo this, make it more of like a bar, like a livable area, get some couches down there, stuff like that. Tenant was obviously really excited. They, it made them happy just to see that I was doing this. And I was able to, before I started these renovations, I was able to kind of cost it out. And to me, it ended up being a couple grand for the renovation. I'll kind of walk through the steps that I took to get to this place, but it was a 3-month process. I didn't end up I did everything in-house myself besides the flooring. So I ended up putting in some electrical. I did some painting. I sprayed the ceilings. I I took out a ton of wood and a ton of different structures that were in there, and really cleaned it up. But the the process took. I think I started it back in. I think it even says right.
Let me see if
No,
there's a date on any of
I
these.
think there's a
October
date,
24th,
December.
2022.
Yeah, so really, I started the renovations in October, and wasn't working every day at it, but when it was all said and done, I've just got to do some trim work, and I think Andrew, do you have any of do
I'm
you have
just
some
going
of
through,
the
like, just going from wires all over the place to having things cleaned up, like, that
yeah.
alone is huge. It makes a big difference.
Yeah, so really
Um,
quick, I'll just run through just the progression. I mean, step one, I ripped down the outdated drop ceiling tiles and existing support beams that were up there. I cleaned up and removed any outdated electrical wiring that was not in use. I installed 12 new LED light fixtures that I did get some assistance from my uncle who is an electrician,
is
but
that the
I'm
can
not
lights
the
here, or is that one of the old ones?
that's one of the old ones. So those suckers came down.
Okay. Oh, there's
Um,
one of your new ones.
So some, yeah, and which were relatively inexpensive. I think I was able to get those for honestly $70 for 12, and they were pretty high
Good.
quality. So
Mhm.
those were good. I used a Wagner paint spray gun. Once everything was ripped down, I sprayed a nice matte black paint, super paint from Sherwin-Williams all over the top to give it kind of that industrial look. Um, then along the way, I found some water damage that was coming
I was
through
gonna
some of
say,
the
is this
wood
your little wall patch
paneling
here?
siding there. So I used some lock and was able to patch that up. And I haven't had a leak since. And that was really the only water damage that's down there. I painted the walls with 2 coats of white super paint from Sherwin Williams. I put in some LVP flooring, which is one of the more expensive costs that I put into redoing the basement. But I had some asbestos flooring that needed to be covered, and obviously
Asbestos-like
it's
material.
it's yes, asbestos like material, but it was a good solution, and it looks really good. And it was a couple grand to do, but I had experts put it in, and this was really the only part that I didn't want to do myself. So
Mhm.
they did that, and then, you know, all said and done, the space is really nice. It'll have a nice bar area. My tenant's already talking about, oh, I can't wait to have people over, use it for blah, blah, blah. And so if you can do it at a reasonable cost, um, I do think it's worth it. What Andrew had brought up earlier is that there's not complete data on whether it really can boost the amount that you can charge for rent enough to
Mhm.
make it worth it. So, you know, it's just something that I wanted to do, and ultimately here's the
I
finished
mean,
product
it
here.
came out looking sharp at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Did you spray the walls or did you roll those?
I rolled the walls.
Mhm. Did you have
So
to do
I
any
could
prep
have
on the paneling first?
No, honestly, I did not. Like I just went in it, and I probably could have gotten away with using a coat of primer, but I just kind of went at it, and uh, I'm thankful for the Sherwin-Williams discount that we do get through
Mhm.
RentPrep, and you can find that on our Facebook page. But yeah, I was able to go through there and just roll 2 coats of it, and I had really no issues.
Mhm. A lot of times
So
with paneling like that, let me see if I can get to the pictures of the older paneling here. A
yeah,
lot of times we'll have to hit that and just give it a quick scuff up first so that it'll hold the paint a little bit better.
yeah,
Sherwin-Williams also makes a product. I think it's Super Binder or Super Bonder or something like that. It's one of their more high end, if I remember correctly, one of their more high end primer products, and that works incredibly well for doing exactly stuff like this with
yeah.
paneling. It just a lot of times that paneling has that smooth veneer to it, and if you don't do something to kind of scuff it or rough it, the paint almost doesn't even want to stick. So very cool. This
Yeah,
project came out looking pretty sharp.
yeah, so excited about it. Like I said, you can see some of the trim that I got to put down, but after that, I'm all set. So 3 or 4 months in
Did
the making.
Now, is this a duplex or is this a house hack?
This is a regular house, two story house, probably 1,300 square feet in total.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
it did take a decent amount of time to spray the exposed ceiling in the basement because
Yeah, I
it's
bet.
actually it's a lot more surface area than you would think. But
Did you
yeah,
have to
it's
like
a
tape
regular
off all
house.
the walls first, or did you just go to town knowing that you were coming back in with paint on the walls after?
The beauty, Andrew, of mapping stuff out and understanding the order that you should be doing stuff in is that I did not tape off the walls
Mhm.
because I did ceiling down to everything, the ceiling, I did lighting, then I did the
Mhm.
walls, then the walls because I didn't need to worry about paint dripping on the floor because I had the asbestos like material on the floor, and then I finished off with putting the flooring in. So
Mhm.
I'd recommend definitely making sure you have your ducks in a row before you start the project, though.
Yeah, it's definitely
Look it
worth
up.
making sure that it's all about order of operations. Whenever you're talking about a rehab or a renovation or even a turnover, it's all about order of operations. You don't want your cleaner going in. You don't want your cleaner going in before the painter. Well, honestly,
Yeah,
sometimes you need the painter or the cleaner to go in just to get the filth off, the first layer of filth off before you can do much more. We've had a couple of apartments like that over the years, but yeah, order of operations. Make sure that the cleaner's the last one through the building. Make sure that the flooring guys come in after the painters are done so that the painters aren't slopping paint on your
yeah,
brand new floor, stuff like that. It's a lot of people forget that stuff or don't think about it when if they're doing a work, the turnovers themselves, especially, they don't think about that order of operations and wind up spending more time and more money on their properties as a result.
yeah. And as a new property owner, and this is really my first crack at doing this kind of stuff. So I have definitely made some mistakes as far as, I'm just eager to jump into some of the projects that are going around the property.
Hmm.
And then I'm like, oh crap, like, why did I paint the sidewalls before I painted the ceiling? Like that happened in the bedroom that I
Hmm.
was finishing. I was like, what am I doing? So yeah, if I can give any first time landlords any advice, it's map out the order of operations, just like Andrew said.
Yeah. I mean, and like just a quick tip for if you're getting ready to put a scope of work together, start in one corner of the room, start in the front left corner of the room, top to bottom, left to right, all the way around. We actually, believe it or not, from when I was involved with the fire department, the way fire departments identify homes is if this is your home, for instance, this would be side A, B, C, and D. And then they also go corner 1, 2, 3, and 4. So if you need to identify something, it's on the A side wall, the B side wall, whatever.
Right.
That is actually something that's helped us quite a bit in writing up our scopes of work. But really, the quick tip there is top to bottom, left to right, all the way around the room. That way, you're not missing things as you're walking through each room. That's how we put our scopes together for every turnover that we do for all of our apartments, and it works pretty well that way.
Yeah,
Um, One
for
thing I did
sure.
want to mention with regards to using a basement or refinishing a basement is if you're planning on refinishing a basement, you have to understand that it may not actually count towards your square footage totals for your home unless you have two forms of egress. And I believe that the basement egress to the ground needs to be at ground level, if I remember correctly, in order for the square footage to count. So if you have like a set of Bilco doors where you have to walk up
Yeah.
a set of stairs to get to ground level, I'm almost certain that that does not count as square footage. Um, it's also worth
That's
noting that if you're trying to do something like that, you're probably going to have the town come in and pull a permit and blah, 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 blah. And it's probably going to raise your assessed value, which is going to raise your taxes. So, all things to consider there, I would say.
Yeah, I remember really quick, and then we'll move on. I don't want to
Hmm.
spend the whole time on this one, but back in my college days, I had a landlord. He owned one property. There was five of us guys. One, he was redoing this whole house. He literally redid this basement for the purpose of having somebody live down there. And it was me who was the one that was supposed to live down there, and the basement did not have two forms of
Two forms of
egress at the
egress.
time.
Hmm.
And he went through all these issues. He eventually tried to move me to the attic, but there was some fire code stuff going on with what was
Can't do
going
that
on in the
either.
attic,
Hmm.
and everything kind of got messed up. So this really relevant to what we're talking about, just like how much it eventually ended up costing him to put another tenant into this property. Again, it's something that you have to weigh on a case by case basis, but he
Right.
he thought it would be smooth sailing. Put this, oh, I'm just going to throw one of these tenants down in the basement, throw them in the attic,
Mhm.
whatever, and all these different things came into play. The city got involved. It was kind of a mess, but that was just a blast
Yeah.
from the past for me.
Oh, I believe it. We used to have some college student rentals by University of Buffalo South campus that we managed, and it was kind of the same thing. We had a couple of apartments that had finished basements in them that tenants wanted to turn into bedrooms, and we're like, no, you
Yeah,
can't. It doesn't meet the requirements for a bedroom. And
yeah,
actually, even on our own home, we ran into this because we were looking at finishing off an already partially finished basement and adding a third bedroom in the downstairs of the home, and we would have had to add an egress window, which I don't know if you've priced an egress window, but like, of course, this was peak COVID when we were looking at this too. But between the groundwork, the foundation work, and the window, we were looking at something like $7,500 just to put a
oh
proper
my
egress window in,
god.
just so that we could like legitimize the bedroom. And then it turned into an issue of, okay, well, where are you going to put the window? Because you can't have it in the front of the house because that's too close to the street, and then you can't have it on the side of the house because that is too close to your neighbor's property line. And ultimately it wound up
God.
torpedoing the project, to be honest with you. um, which
No,
fine, it is
that
what it is. Like, but yeah, like to do it right is costly, but to do it right
yeah,
is also the thing that's going to save you when something
right.
happens, there's an issue with the house and everybody needs to evacuate. If somebody can't evacuate from that basement because it wasn't designed or built properly, it's going to come back to you as the landlord. So yeah, we've definitely have seen that stuff before, and different areas have different restrictions too. Some areas may even make you put like sprinklers in the basement if you want to use it as the bedroom. They
Yeah.
certainly do for attics.
No, for sure. All right. All right, let's keep trucking here. Next question from this is a question from Flumati. The tenant moved out but did not pay 2 months rent, but I took out
Mhm.
deposit for one of the two, but owes 1 month now. I let him go and will not go to court.
So
Okay.
tenant moved out, left. There was a security deposit.
Let
Sounds like the security deposit paid one of the unpaid months, but there's still 1 month unpaid kicking around there.
Yeah, and it seems like Flamati is just letting them go and will not be going to court. So
You could send it to
I don't know really know
collections.
what the question. Yeah,
I mean, if you're not looking to pursue it in court, I guess the only option available to you at that point would be send it to collections.
yeah,
I'm not going to sit and run through the whole process on finding a collection agency and this and that. First of all, finding a collection agency that's going to take on one piece of debt that's probably, a couple $1,000s, they probably are not going to be interested in that, to be honest with you. The other thing you
no,
have to keep in mind is just because you send it to collections doesn't necessarily mean you're ever going to get paid out on it. And if you do get paid out on it, that collection agency is taking somewhere between a third and a half of that money right off the top. So it is an
yeah,
option. It's an option. Realistically speaking, even going to court and getting a judgment against a tenant, unless that tenant gets to a point in their life where they're looking to buy a house or something like that, and this lien is going to be an issue, or this judgment is going to be an issue against them when they go to do that, the chances of getting paid, even if you have a judgment, are pretty slim. But
yeah,
you do have that judgment, and it does stay alive in New York for 10 years. And I believe that you can actually renew it for an additional 10 years on top of that. So there's some
yeah,
options out there. But honestly, if you're not going to go to court on it, which probably it doesn't make sense to go to court, you're probably just going to wind up eating that loss more than likely. It's worth sending it to the collections agency if you can find one that's willing to take it on. But I think that when you're talking about an amount like that, more than likely you're better off to just pass on it and move forward with your life.
yeah, for sure. All right, let's keep trucking. Let's do this one. Question from Liz. I am a few blocks away from a university. Can I request students only, or would that be in violation of Fair Housing Act?
So I'm pretty sure that would be a violation of the Fair Housing Act. Pretty sure that you would have to. If anybody applied, I think you would have to screen all applicants equally. So you would still want to have your written criteria. You want to make sure that they're fair housing compliant. And anybody who wants to look at the apartment, I'm pretty sure that you would be in a situation where you have to let that person look and apply. I think the only restrictive housing that I can think of off the top of my head would be like senior housing, 55 plus senior housing, which falls into its own separate category. But you have to meet certain occupancy requirements and things of that nature in order to call it senior housing and advertise it as such. And I don't
Right.
know what those limits are off the top of my head, but I know that I think it's like a unit requirement of over 75 or 80% of the units have to be occupied by seniors 55 plus or something along those lines. And then you can advertise it as senior housing.
Yeah.
But as far as students, I don't know of any carve out for students for student housing or anything of that nature. If you're out there just renting a property and it just happens to be near University at Buffalo South Campus, I think that anybody who wants to apply for that apartment, you would still have to screen them the same way. That's how we handled it when we had all of our rentals in the University District anyway. And
Yeah.
more
From
often
a
than not,
marketing,
go ahead.
no, from a marketing perspective, just to try to mitigate some of the, try to get more students to apply, just make sure like the marketing and the different materials that you put out there for promoting the property are just geared towards student housing, student this, student that. And just from a marketing perspective, that's what you can control.
Mm-hmm.
Like Andrew had said, like if you get an applicant from an external source or somebody who's not technically a student, you still need to honor that. But if you gear your marketing more towards student this, student that, a lot of the potential tenants aren't going to want to, if they're not a student, they're probably not going to want to actually apply for that property anyway. So
And
that's what you can really control.
most student rentals seem to rent for more than a comparable rental that would be renting to like a normal family. I don't know how else to say
Yeah,
it. Like realistically
yeah,
speaking, I think most people tend to price their student rentals a little bit higher than what they would price a regular rental. And also, I
yeah,
think that you have some control over there, even like you said, based on marketing. If you go and post the available apartment as a flyer on, the local board at the university, like that's honestly one of the most common ways that we used to find tenants was we used to go to like the student commons and post flyers saying we've got 1, 2, 3, and 4 bedroom apartments. We would
yeah,
get tons of phone calls from that. So I think it's just a matter of gearing your marketing in such a way that you are gearing it towards students. But again, if somebody else from outside of the university decides that they want to apply, I don't see any way of restricting them really.
yeah. All right. Okay, we're gonna switch it up here. This is actually and I wanted to bring this one up to you, Andrew. Angela
Mhm.
had submitted a story to us that was, I can't remember the source that it came from, but she had posted it in the Facebook group. But the title of this story is "Family of Five Facing Homelessness After Being Scammed by a Fake Real Estate Agent." So this was something that had happened in Gainesville, Florida. A family of five moved into a rental home in Gainesville after taking a tour with a real estate agent they met on Facebook Marketplace. Oh boy.
Mm.
Now they are facing homelessness after finding out that they're staying in uh, uh, in a place that belongs to somebody else. So they were shown the property. They by a Facebook Marketplace agent had assumed that they had got the property, showed up to the property, and there was somebody else living there.
Mhm.
The property manager went to check on the house and called Gainesville police when he realized unauthorized people were occupying the home. To his
Mhm.
surprise, this woman and her family moved into the home under a fake real estate agent. And then just some of the stats on this, according to the property manager, the scammer broke in. So
Mhm.
the fake real estate agent broke in, changed the locks, provided the family of five with a fake lease, and collected
Mhm.
$2,100 in move-in fees from the family. So the
Yeah.
family plans to report the scam to Gainesville police. In the meantime, Hampton reported the incident to the police and set up a GoFundMe for the family.
Yeah, and this is one of those situations that it's starting to happen more frequently. We had our first one of these happen to us a couple years back. Actually, it was one of those university apartments, believe it or not. Um, same basic situation. Somebody took photos from our listing and reused the photos on their listing at a way lower rent. Like I think it was a $1,200 apartment that they had listed for like $600 or something, which obviously meant that they were getting a ton of people reaching out to them about it. And ultimately, they did wind up scamming somebody out of a security deposit. I don't know if they got a security and a first month or not, but they wound up scamming them out of at least a security deposit.
Yeah.
So that person was out $600 before they even realized that the person who they were dealing with was a scammer and that they were never going to get into that apartment. So
I mean,
I have up
that
on
is
screen right now,
crazy.
this is actually a sign that we started using after that happened. We actually post this in a few spots in the home. We'll actually post this usually in the bathroom, like on the mirror in the bathroom. We post it inside, like whatever the front entrance to the apartment is. Like as soon as you walk in the apartment, it'll be posted right on the wall in front of you. We usually post it in a front window if we're able to. If it's not a second story apartment, we'll put it right on the front window too. Because if somebody stops to look at the place, at least then, hey, they're going to notice this sign. And we actually print this on bright orange paper. I don't have one here in the office quite handy, but we print this on bright orange paper. So it stands out immediately when you see it, whether you're inside or outside. And at least this gives people a little bit of an indicator as to, that they might be getting scammed if they're not going through us directly. Again, we post it inside the unit in such a place that you would have to physically have access to the inside of the unit to, number one, see it, number two, remove it. And the reason that we put one inside the front door and inside like the bathroom is it's nice to have it in multiple spots in case let's say somebody picks the lock and walks in and they rip that one off, they might miss the one in the bathroom. So that's the reason why we go that route. And honestly, we haven't had one of these pop up since. They're not super, super frequent, but we do see them a lot in Western New York. And I think that it's just going to get more and more frequent as time goes on, because I think that people are getting a lot more bold when it comes to the things that they're willing to say and do to make a buck.
I mean, it's just crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know what to think. I think that story, it was a family that was trying to move into a place that they needed a little bit more space. I know that they had some members of the family that had some disabilities and needed the more space to help them move around, all this stuff. And I mean, that's just crazy. Breaking in, changing the locks, showing it like it's your own, and then you find out.
No, you're exactly right. But that's
insane.
what they do. They look for the people that are most vulnerable, because every single time you hear one of these situations, it's not the person that has first month, last month, and security deposit ready to go. It's always the person who they're trying to find a solution to a problem in their life. They need to get into a new place. They need to get in quickly. They may not have a ton of money to do it. They find this place and it's a deal. It's a bargain. It's too good to be true, because it is too good to be true. And ultimately they wind up making a mistake, and it sucks because they're taking advantage of people in probably one of their most vulnerable states. And there's very, very little recourse. There's nothing you can really do to catch these people. You're never going to get the money back for the person who's impacted, or the person who's impacted is never going to get the money back. There's not really much investigation that goes into these things because it is such a common scam. And frankly, the police, they don't have the resources necessary to track something like this down in a lot of instances. And it's not getting a lot of attention, on a federal level. It would probably be either Secret Service or FBI that would investigate this, because it's a currency crime. I'm thinking Secret Service, but they're not putting the resources into this the way that you would need to actually stop it. So it's really no different than the call center scams and everything else. It's just the new flavor of that. So that's what I would do to try to protect yourself. If you're putting something on the market, watermark your photos. Like if you're putting photos online, watermark your photos so that, let me see here. Can I actually pull up, watermark your photos so that somebody can't just go take your photos off your website and turn around and like reuse your photos. I can pull up some watermarked photos if you want.
Yeah. I would say also be weary of a lot of agents will put themselves on Marketplace, on Facebook, and they'll blur out the price, or they'll make the price like $0, and they just just have the conversation with you and start working
Mhm.
that way, and then they might start talking to you about property. So just when your gut does not feel right on this kind of stuff,
Mhm.
it normally is correct. Like
Yeah.
don't fall into the trap. Use reputable sources that you trust. Like look for things like watermarks. You know look for these signs that kind of lead you to be comfortable with the
Mhm.
apartment or the house hunting search.
Well, and
There
so
you
I
go.
pulled up a quick photo of one of our listings right now that's watermarked. And you don't need to be a genius to figure out how to do this. You can do this in Canva, which is a free app you can download on your phone. We're using a software that does it for us automatically. But the one thing I do want to mention is if you're going to watermark a photo, either watermark it diagonal across the entire image or right in the center of the, you don't want it down here in the corner where somebody can simply crop it out and call it a day and move on with stealing your
Yeah.
photos and stuff like that. So, whoops, I just stopped my camera. Let's turn that back on and stop the screen instead. There we go.
All right.
So,
I
but yeah, that
think
would be my recommendation for that. I think we hit that one pretty good.
yeah. All right. I think we got time for one more here.
Okay.
Let's go with, how about question from Frank? Let's do this one to cap it off. I have a tenant that lives in my in-law apartment, which is a hoarder.
Hmm.
She does have mice, but in order to fumigate, she needs to get rid of her stuff, which doesn't want to. She doesn't want to. How do I make her get rid of her stuff that mice can hide in? So
So I don't be honest with you. I don't have a good answer for this one. And the reason for that is because whenever you start talking about hoarding, um, hoarding is a medical condition. It's a
right,
mental illness. It's a recognized mental illness. So when you start talking about someone who's hoarding and start talking about trying to get them to get rid of their hoard, there could be, I mean, obviously they're in violation of the lease. And I don't think that there's anything that would stop you from issuing a lease violation to them and saying, in order for us to do the fumigation and have the fumigation be effective, we need your cooperation in the removal of some of the stuff that the mice are living in, i.e., if you have a giant pile of clothes on the floor in your laundry room, it's very easy for a mouse to crawl inside that pile of clothes and stay very, very warm. And they're never going to be impacted by any sort of fumigation that you do because they're in the middle of a pile of dirty clothes.
right.
So I think that this is one of those situations where you start with the letter of violation. Um, then I think you're probably going to wind up having to have a conversation with an attorney to see what your next steps are, to see what the best route to go is. I know that it sucks when you have to involve an attorney in a situation like this, especially right off the bat, but realistically speaking, you are dealing with something that could turn into a fair housing concern or something along
Oh
those
yeah,
lines. So I think your best bet is to talk to a landlord tenant attorney that can better advise you as to what the proper procedure is in your state or in your municipality for something like this. And honestly, if that was me, I'm a third party property manager. I manage property on behalf of another person and I collect a fee for doing that. That's the definition of third party property management here in Western New York. I would do the exact same thing. I would issue out the letter of violation, and assuming the tenant didn't do what we requested, my next phone call would be to an attorney to say, listen, here's the situation. What do I do now? And
yeah.
sometimes you have to pay those fees. Like having a conversation with an attorney, I'm very fortunate to have an attorney that we do a fair amount of business with. So when I call and ask a weird question like that, they usually take my call. But having an attorney that you are familiar with working in this business is critical. Like I always say, it's law, then lease, then logic in that order. Law starts
Yeah.
it off. So having a good attorney in the landlord tenant space that can help you through situations like this is probably a good option. One thing I would discourage you from doing is just taking the random advice of other landlords who may or may not have done this the correct way, because that could be a surefire way for you to find yourself in some hot water if you step on somebody's toes or do the wrong thing, especially because you're talking about, I don't know as though this person is necessarily diagnosed as a hoarder, but it sounds like they could probably get diagnosed very, very quickly if that was something that they wanted to pursue. So it's just about making sure that you cover yourself in a situation like that, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. We got 2 o'clock.
Perfect.
So I think, I think we had some good ones today. There was
I think we
definitely
did.
some topics and some stories and stuff like that that I feel like we have not had in a while. So I think it was fun to jump on, and I hope to be in the mix again for some of the future AMAs too, Andrew.
Yeah, definitely. These are a lot easier when there's another person involved. Because I know we've done a few of these now, and a lot of times it's just me on the screen, and oftentimes I'm reading the question and then responding to it, which that's an hour block solid of me just talking and talking and talking. I don't know if anybody paid attention, but like I rip through water when I'm going through these. I'm on my second glass of water.
You've got a water
So it's
cooler
nice to
under your
have.
desk.
I
You got a
should have a
nice
water
little
cooler on my
nice
desk.
little self-fill pitcher under that desk.
Right. Exactly. So it's nice. It's working out well, but it's nice to have somebody else on these too because it gives me a break to take a sip of water. And obviously, it was cool because you had your basement project that you had just finished up as well. So
Yeah.
it's nice to know that the people that work at Rent Prep aren't just screeners. Like obviously, Josh, you work in the marketing department, but there are several people at RentPrep that own investment property and are active real estate investors, and that's part of what makes RentPrep special is they actually understand the industry. They're not just churning out credit report and background check after credit report and background
Right.
check. Um,
Well, that's been the
and
cool thing for me too with the new property. Obviously, like I'm a first time landlord. I've got
mhm,
tenants. I deal with I'm starting to deal with some of these issues that I see in the Facebook group, and it proves even more value there.
mhm,
It proves the group's value twice over because I'm seeing some of the same things I'm dealing with in there. I'm interacting in there, engaging in there, seeing how people are handling that stuff.
mhm.
Um, so it's cool.
Yeah.
I'm working at a place that is focused on exactly what I'm dealing with in my life. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, definitely. And like I said, you're certainly not the only one. I know quite a few of the staff members there at Rent Prep now, and there are multiple people who are involved in the real estate industry and involved in investment properties. So it's pretty cool to see
Yeah.
that. It's not you guys are actually living the reality of the situation. So that's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
So all right, very cool. We'll go ahead and wrap things up here. If you are interested in seeing these more in the future, feel free to follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/group/rentprep for the Rent Prep for Landlords Facebook group. We're over 13,500 members in there now, which is pretty cool.
Yep.
Definitely an awesome free resource to tie into. We also push out podcast episodes twice a month, as well as YouTube videos twice a month. You can find the podcast by searching for Rent Prep for Landlords on pretty much every podcast platform there is. I don't think we're
Yeah.
missing from any of them. And then the YouTube page is youtube.com/rentprep, if I remember correctly. We are
Yes.
pushing to get some more subscribers on YouTube. So if you guys want to help us out, do us a favor, pop on over to YouTube, youtube.com/rentprep. You'll get to see more of my shining face over there. We do cover quite a few varying topics over there, a lot of interesting content. And actually, I think I'll plug this now. We're going to be doing a piece of content here in the next few weeks revolving around how to recognize and prevent yourself from being caught up in fake landlord statements, fake pay stubs, fake landlord references, fake credit reports. We're working on that on the back end right now. I don't know what the release date is on that off the top of my head, but that's going to be a really, really good episode. We're putting a fair amount of work into that to make sure that it has a lot of value for everybody.
I saw in the Facebook group, Andrew, somebody had that screenshot that you had posted a month or so ago with the
Mhm.
services for all that. Somebody had just posted that again. I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 days ago. I saw that screenshot again. Somebody asking a
That
question
same
about that.
place.
So same exact screenshot. I think the question was a little bit different than the answer that you addressed at first, but same exact place, same screenshot. Um, so it's something that's happening right now, and something
Yeah,
that
it's
landlords are
very
dealing
real.
with. So
Well,
so
and
that'll be
it's funny.
interesting.
I wish I had those pay stubs. I know I've sent a couple of fake pay stubs over to you guys. Whenever I get a fake pay stub, I try to send it over to the Rent Prep team so that they can see it. And I know it gets shared around the office because that's how you guys learn. That's how you guys come to recognize this stuff too. So
Yeah.
I had one that was such a bad Photoshop that like they didn't even try. Like there was like a curve to the paper, but like the text was just in a block where the text roughly should have been, but like it didn't match the curve of the paper. It was so easy to pull it out and recognize it as fake. Then like 3 days later, I got another one that if I hadn't sat and looked at the math on it, I would have immediately, I would not have recognized it as being a fake pay stub. So people are getting a lot more crafty, and that's what we're going to be looking to talk about in that episode. So
for sure.
Josh, thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate it. We're going to be back. Well, I'll be back. I don't know if you'll be back in March with another AMA. We'll see. We'll see who's joining me for that one. But thank you for joining me. It was awesome to have you. Thank you for sharing your basement rehab. That's even better.
For sure. Yes.
And
thank you.
we'll talk to everybody soon.